news from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to First Post Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. World oil prices surged more than 5% after US President Donald Trump targets Russia's key oil industry with new sanctions in a bid to end the war in Ukraine. The UK reports that it received nearly 37,000 migrants aboard small boats this year. This is more than the total for the whole of 2024. The spike in arrivals come amid rising anti-immigration sentiment across the country. The Bolivian Election Authority confirms the victory of Rodrigo Paz in the presidential runoff, announcing the final count after protests alleging fraud erupted across the Latin American country. Mali's military ruler, Assimi Goïta, fires 3 senior commanders in the armed forces, reportedly for poor results on the battlefield in the campaign against terrorists. And in Bangladesh, a court is set to deliver the verdict in the crimes against humanity case against ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on the 13th of November. Hello and welcome. Our top story today is from Nigeria. The West African country has said that it was not worried about the impact of tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump. In August, the Trump administration slapped a 15% tariff on Nigerian goods, but oil and gas were exempted. It has been nearly 3 months since the US tariffs on Nigeria took effect. But the West African nation has said that the tariffs did not harm it as much as other countries. These remarks were made by Nigeria's Foreign Minister Yusuf Tuggar during a media interaction.
Nigeria, the tariffs imposed by the US do not necessarily harm Nigeria to the extent that they may others. One, because we are a very large country, like you said in your introduction, a country of 230 million people. So we have a huge internal market, and we've got not only size, but we've got scale.
Explaining further as to why Trump's tariff did not bother Nigeria much, the foreign minister cited the country's huge internal market with a population of 230 million, which is expected to grow to 400 million by the year 2050. The minister said that Nigeria was not entirely dependent on the US for trade and had multiple trade partners in South America and Asia as well.
We trade with the US, we trade with China, we trade with Brazil, we trade with India. And our focus is not necessarily on one axis or the other, or especially in a multipolar world.
On one hand, President Bola Tinubu's government has claimed that it was not worried about Trump's hardline trade policies. And on the other hand, some African nations have agreed to accept migrants deported from the US to reportedly please Trump, and this to ease our ties with the US. Now, the Trump administration has struck deportation deals with at least 5 African nations, including Eswatini, South Sudan, Rwanda, Ghana, and Uganda. But Nigeria has said that it will not follow suit. Tinubu's government has ruled out the possibility of accepting deportees from the U.S.
That ship has sailed. We made our point, and I believe it's been it's no longer on the discussion table. We continue to enjoy a good relationship with the United States. We do not see the need to take in other nationals under duress from any country, because we already have a population, like I said, of 230 million people.
Speaking for Africa at large, the Nigerian minister said that rich countries should not approach trade with Africa as a game of Minecraft, in which they secure supplies of natural resources. He said that the trade ties should instead be based on mutual respect and the need for Africa to develop. The Nigerian minister's remarks followed President Tinubu's recent claims that the country's economy was finally improving after his sweeping tax reforms, including the end of fuel subsidies. His reforms had triggered a cost of living crisis in the country. Nigeria is Africa's most populous country and a crude oil exporter, grappling with a huge power deficit. In big cities, power cuts lasting hours or days on end are a daily reality. According to the World Bank, 4 in 10 Nigerians do not have access to electricity. For decades, successive governments have promised to improve the power supply across the nation, but not much has improved so far. Investors have cited Nigeria's huge power deficit as one of the main obstacles to doing business in the country. Now, amid all of these challenges, President Tinubu's government remains confident that Trump's tariff could not harm Nigeria much. Now, the question arises, is the confidence based on a strategy or just some far-fetched idea? Now, for more on this, we have with us Dr. Ambrose Igboke, an international affairs analyst who is joining us live from Enugu in Nigeria. Thank you for being with us on Firstpost Africa, Doctor.
Thank you, Alison. It's good to be here again.
Yes. Now, how has Nigeria managed to cushion the impact of the U.S. tariffs compared to other countries? And what role does its diversified trade with parties like China, Brazil, and India play in this kind of resilience?
Nigeria has always survived through the export of crude oil. And the position of Nigeria is made very powerful in the area of when Nigeria became an integral part of Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries called OPEC. So Nigeria has been able to maintain its gravitas in the sale of crude oil internationally. Historically, Nigeria has a very good relationship with the United States, but not from the beginning. We remember that Nigeria's colonial list were the British, and then gradually we became close to the U.S. But even in the 70s, between 1975 to 1977-78, we found out that Nigeria was closer to the Eastern Bloc of the Soviet Union those days. And that is why when you notice some heavy infrastructure in Nigeria built in that era, like the Alaja Steel Plant in Warri, the Abeokuta Steel Plant, the National Theatre in Lagos, and so many other things were built by the Russians. And even some of the East Germans, right. So Nigeria has always been close to more people than the U.S. It was in the 80s that the U.S. started being friends of Nigeria. So when you talk of even the trade deficit, trade balance, Nigeria have no trade balance with U.S. per se. It is the U.S. that actually gains more from Nigeria, because Nigerians import a lot of products from the United States, a lot of service. They have a lot of big companies from the U.S. Like Chevron, like Mobil Nigeria, that run this joint venture in the oil industry, and other big companies, tech companies in the US that are doing businesses in Nigeria. Google is here, Meta is here, and so many others running the digital infrastructure in Nigeria and also the economy. So that it is actually it's a trading balance, and that is why it's not affecting Nigeria in any way.
Right. And the Foreign Minister, Yusuf Tuggar, has mentioned Nigeria's pursuit of strategic autonomy. This is really what you've been speaking about. What does this mean in practical terms for Nigeria's foreign and trade policy, particularly in balancing relationships with global powers?
Nigeria is one of the few countries in the world that has everything. When I say everything, I'm speaking without any sense of exaggeration here. Nigeria has almost all kinds of mineral resources all over the earth that the other people don't have. Nigeria's land is very arable. Nigeria, apart of to crown it all, has the human resource and also have the population for its own market. So Nigeria have strong partnership with third world countries that are growing with it. For example, Malaysia, Brazil, even India. Nigeria's relationship with India dates back many decades, and with a lot of partnerships. Although the Russian relationship has waned recently, but it's still very strong. Also, Nigeria has a cluster of international partners, and the few times America has pressured us to do the things we don't want to do just for the sake of gaining some access, it failed. Some years back, the United States threatened us that if we don't allow LGBTQ, in Nigeria, that was the year we criminalized it, and they gave us some sanctions. Again, when any sanction Nigeria given to Nigeria, it is US that loses because the trade balance is in favor of the United States. The same thing that they've come with other kind of strategies. So for us in Nigeria, we are not affected in any way because how many times do we actually send serious goods to the United States? We don't. Apart from the human resources of Nigerians that are working as immigrants in the United States, the trade balance is so much in favor of America that it doesn't in any way affect Nigeria significantly.
Sure. Right. And given that Nigeria is reportedly not in talks to take back deportees from the US, how might this stance affect future diplomatic and economic relations between the two countries?
I don't think this is a big problem. For me, the US, as I said earlier, gains more from Nigeria. The ratio is so insignificant. What do we actually gain from the US apart from being friendly with a superpower, which we also gain from Britain, which we can also gain from Russia, India, Brazil. But what we have in US, we have a very strong relationship with them, and I don't think this kind of tariff will bother. But it can be solved diplomatically. It's not by haranguing us and trying to force us to do what we don't want to do. The carrots, you cannot give us carrots and say, get deportees and get this. We're already grappling with inflation. We are grappling with much population. Most of our population are also in the poverty line. And so we don't want immigrants to, people that are, we are battling with insecurity. And you want to bring people who are criminals or people from immigrants that you have rejected in your own country to come here to overbloat our population. So it's not what we can grapple with because we are going through a lot of economic complexities right now. And then US should use it as a diplomatic measure, not as a punishment measure, and saying that, if you don't do this, we're going to deal with you. That will not fly.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa. Great to have you on the show, as always.
Thank you very much, Alice. It's a pleasure to be here.
Moving on to some updates now from Egypt. The country is focusing on enhancing political and economic ties with the European Union. It has entered a $4.6 billion agreement with the European bloc for financial support. The pact was signed during the inaugural Egypt-EU summit in Brussels. The meeting focused on bilateral relations, trade and migration. And the attendees included Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and the European Council President Antonio Costa.
In promoting stability and conflict resolution, we have an economic and trade relation that has been growing impressively and that we want to see grow even further. We have a rich cooperation in multiple fields: trade, security, mobility, migration, energy, education, research, culture.
Addressing the summit, al-Sisi called for a mutually beneficial investment partnership. He highlighted Egypt's ability to provide opportunities in strategic sectors. These include pharmaceuticals, automotive, energy, microchips, AI, and defense, among others. Al-Sisi underscored the importance of Egypt-EU economic partnership, adding that the bloc was Cairo's top trading and investment partner in 2024. The Egyptian president said that the two sides discussed establishing a European investment corridor in Egypt, and this would serve as a gateway to African and Arab markets. It would also integrate Egypt more deeply into European supply chains. Now, during the summit, the two sides signed pacts catering to various fields, and this included Egypt's participation in the Horizon Europe, the EU's main research and innovation funding program. The two sides also signed a joint statement on a financing agreement aimed at supporting social and economic reform initiatives in Egypt.
Second, we are strengthening Egypt's economic stability. We are providing Egypt with €5 billion in macrofinancial assistance. It was signed today. And we continue our support to social and economic reforms. The third pillar is we are boosting together investment and trade. The European Union is Egypt's largest trading partner, accounting for a quarter of your trade.
Maritime security was also a part of the discussion. This is due to Egypt's strategic location, connecting Africa and Asia. The European side asserted that it will work with Cairo to keep sea routes safe and open for trade in the Red Sea, the Suez Canal, and the Mediterranean and beyond. The summit, which was attended by representatives from European and Egyptian firms and international financial institutions, also saw discussions on regional and international issues. The two sides talked about the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. The European side hailed Egypt's stabilizing role in the Israel-Hamas war and called for lasting peace with a two-state solution.
Beyond the Middle East, Egypt plays a vital stabilizing role across the wider region. We share common concerns and objectives in Libya, in Sudan, and in Somalia. Today, we agreed to continue and deepen our dialogue and engagement in these critical issues.
The recent meeting in Brussels followed the announcement of a strategic partnership between Egypt and the EU in March of 2024. The EU had put forward a financial and investment support package of more than $8.5 billion for Egypt to be given through grants, guarantees, and loans between 2024 and 2027. Then both sides held their first ever Egypt-EU investment conference in June last year. Now, with the latest summit, the cooperation between the two seems to be growing to a whole new level, with Egypt potentially playing a key role in bridging the gap between Europe and the African continent. Our next story is from Cameroon. The results of the presidential elections are due on the 27th of October, and political tensions are running high in the country. Now, President Biya's ally turned top rival, Issa Chiroma Bakary, has called on his supporters to protest if the results are not in his favor. Now, earlier this month, Chiroma claimed victory in the presidential elections and asked Biya to concede. According to Chiroma's own tally, he has won 54.8% of the votes against Biya's 31.3%. Chiroma has warned that he will not accept any other results.
For the Cameroonian people, in their overwhelming majority, will never accept the Constitutional Council's validation of the falsification and ballot stuffing on a historic scale, as it has been brought to the attention of the entire world.
Chiroma's warning came after the country's poll body declared 92-year-old President Biya a provisional winner. Reportedly, it said that Biya had won over 53% of the votes, which means that he is set to win an 8th term. Chiroma has refused to accept the provisional results.
My dear compatriots, the situation is serious. We will not allow having our victory stolen from us. If they prefer to threaten the serenity and peace of the country rather than admit defeat, we will respond with the peaceful determination of the people.
Plutôt que d'admettre la défaite, nous répondrons par la détermination pacifique du peuple.
Protests have erupted in the capital and other cities over alleged election irregularities. Since last week, Chiroma's supporters have taken to the streets to claim victory. Demonstrations soon escalated into clashes with the security forces. However, Cameroon's Constitutional Council has dismissed all petitions contesting the 12th of October presidential election results. The Council has rejected 10 petitions containing allegations of ballot stuffing, voter intimidation, and other irregularities, citing insufficient evidence or lack of jurisdiction to annul the election. The decisions of the Council are final and not subject to appeal. Biya's party has also rejected allegations of vote rigging and has denounced Chiroma's victory claim as a grotesque hoax and an unacceptable fraud in a state of law. The president's party said that they were calmly awaiting the official results and urged the people of Cameroon to do the same. At the age of 92, President Biya is the world's oldest head of state. If he wins the hotly contested presidential polls, a fresh 7-year term could keep him in power until he is nearly 100 years old. President Biya seems confident that he will serve an 8th term, and his top rival Chiroma has vowed not to accept defeat. Who wins and who loses? Only time will tell. This remains a developing story, and we will keep bringing you all the latest updates. And our last story today is from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Rwanda-backed M23 rebels have looted at least 500 kilograms of gold from a mine since May. The loot took place at the Twagiza mine in eastern South Kivu province. And this mineral-rich province has been occupied by the M23 rebels fighting the DRC forces. A Chinese firm running the mine reported that it lost almost 100 kilograms of gold per month since its takeover in May. At current market prices, the looted gold is worth around $70 million. The firm accused some of its own employees of aiding the theft and has also alleged that the rebels have expelled residents, demolished churches, and employed Rwandan technicians to collect geological data for expanded mining operations. The company added that a drone strike on the 15th of October destroyed power infrastructure at the site, though it remains unclear who was behind the attack. Now, the company has said that circumstances are beyond its control. It plans to file formal complaints with both Congolese authorities and international arbitration bodies. Fighting in eastern DRC has killed thousands and has displaced hundreds of thousands this year. The M23 rebels have seized several cities in a lightning advance since January, including multiple mining sites, according to UN investigators. The DRC accuses neighboring Rwanda of supporting the rebels and using them to loot mineral resources. Multiple United Nations reports and expert analyses have documented substantial evidence of Rwandan support for the M23, facilitating territorial gains and access to minerals and fertile land. UN experts last December reported that around 120 tons of coltan were being sent by the M23 to Rwanda every 4 weeks. Rwanda has denied these allegations. Now, US President Donald Trump brokered a peace deal between Congo and Rwanda in June, aimed at stabilizing eastern Congo and attracting Western mining investments. Qatar has been hosting direct talks between Congo and the M23, but the two sides missed an August deadline for a peace deal. Despite the peace efforts, tensions persist in eastern DRC, with reports of fighting erupting in recent weeks. While the humanitarian consequences have been dire, the fighting has also hit DRC's mineral wealth, with the country's riches remaining out of reach for its people. And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.